We're 7 days away from the season opener, and we've heard no news on any progress between the 49ers and Trent Williams. And then today, the Niners just signed another offensive tackle. We'll discuss that and more next on Cohn and Krueger. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Cohn and Krueger, sponsored by BetUS. That's Larry Krueger. I'm Grant Cohn. Season starts in 1 week. They have practice tomorrow. We're going to learn a lot about who's in, who's out. But right now, Brandon Parker is in. If you thought the 49ers were going to sign an offensive tackle today, you were absolutely right. They did. Brandon Parker, who's, he's been around. He was here for training camp. And if Trent Williams can't play, who knows? The guy might be suited up week one. General sense of what's going on with Trent?
It seemed like everything was on target for a return. You had Deshaun Jackson saying it. The Niners, all the conversation, we're having good communication. How's the communication with Ayuk? It's communication. But Trent communicate. Oh, it's good communication. So you kind of get the feeling, at least from the Niners and what they were putting out, that maybe none of this was a surprise. None of this wasn't foreseen, and they were all hunky-dory and on the same page and working towards a solution. But tomorrow is the day, and he has to either get it. He either has to be there tomorrow, or the Niners are going to go into week one at a huge, huge disadvantage on their O-line.
Yeah, it seems like they're getting toward the deadline. They could sign him at any point this week, and I guess I still expect them to. But when they added an offensive tackle to take Ricky Pearsall's place on the 53-man roster, that made me feel that maybe they're not as confident as I am in them. Like, I'm not. They say the communication is good. We have no idea what the communication is. I mean, it could be anything but good. He could be saying, I'm going to retire unless you give me everything I want. Brandon never said anything like that. This could be a tougher situation. And from Trent's perspective, if the Niners haven't given him every single thing he wants and they want him to sort of like meet in the middle, I kind of want to miss week one, because I don't think they could win without Trent Williams. And if they lose week one without him, then he gets everything he wants. Yeah,
I mean, they don't have a backup plan. I mean, they don't have
Brandon Parker.
Yeah, exactly. Brandon Parker. I'd feel better if it was Peter Parker.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, Brandon Parker, just a guy, And I think he's a guy that could get Brock Purdy killed. And to me, the bigger issue here is not just, does Trent come back? I mean, you got to have him back. I mean, come on. You're not a Super Bowl contender without him. He's your best player, either side of the football. But here's the other wrinkle here. He's 36. He's not 26 like Ayuk. He's 36. So the last thing I want to see him do is sign on Wednesday and try to go on Sunday. Yeah. In fact, if he's not there tomorrow, I would say to Kyle, I don't care if he shows up on Wednesday, Thursday. I don't care when he shows up. He's not playing in this game because he hasn't played. And I know he's great, but I'll take Jalen Moore after a full summer of practice over Trent Williams with 72 hours.
All I know is the Jets have a great defense. And if Brock Purdy were to get hurt against the Jets because Trent Williams wasn't playing because they couldn't come to a financial agreement with him, that would be a really embarrassing moment for the franchise. And if they really think Brock is their guy long-term, they won't let it come to that. They won't take that risk. That's why I'm confident that Trent's going to play week one. I know it seems like it's about time, but I just can't see them playing week one with Jalen Moore on the field. I can't see it. It's a huge risk.
It is a huge risk. He's not, he was a 5th-round draft choice years ago. They say he's improving. He's a nice kid, but he's nowhere close to Trent Williams. He's not even a replacement level tackle. I think he's just a kind of a stopgap guy. I'll tell you, the scariest report of the week is Jeremy Fowler saying that Trent Williams is, quote, not happy. So, because that could be anything. That could be, well, he just hasn't gotten his deal done, or he could legitimately not be happy with the way this thing has gone. And that's the last guy that you want to have unhappy on your team, because he is the bodyguard for, the engine of your offense.
The last time he was unhappy with the franchise, he sat out an entire season. And it's one thing to not have Brandon Ayuk on the field. It's like, oh, that could hurt the efficiency of the offense. That might not be ideal for Brock Purdy. You don't have Trent Williams out there. Now you're thinking about, is someone going to get hurt? But yeah, forget the efficiency. That goes down too. But this is a very violent game. And without him out there, there's really no resistance. There's no protection for the most important player on the team. So I just can't see it happening. But then again, if Trent Williams is really not messing around, who knows? The Niners may not have a choice.
What do you remember the 3 games that Trent missed last year?
Yeah.
Which games were they?
It was Browns, and then it was Vikings, and then it was Bengals, back to back to back.
Okay. All losses, basically.
Uh-huh.
Or, you could have beaten the Cleveland Browns, but you didn't beat Minnesota, and you got destroyed by Cincinnati.
Right.
So
they lost to PJ Walker.
I'm not saying that that's cause and effect, but you don't have Trent. You didn't beat Cleveland. You don't have Trent. You didn't beat Minnesota. You don't have Trent. You don't beat Cincinnati. You get just mollywopped by Cincinnati. You got to have him. So they have no leverage. They have no backup plan. They have no plan B. And they made it seem like it was a done deal. Well, if it's like, I understand their situation. I understand they're hugged up against the cap in the future years. They got to pay Brock in the future. But this is a year-to-year league, and right now you got to have Trent, and everything else be damned. I mean, tomorrow's problems are tomorrow's problems. Not having Trent is a today problem.
Here's what's scary, though, potentially for the Niners. Let's say the Niners give him what he wants tomorrow, and Trent doesn't sign it. Says, I got to think about it, or maybe that's not enough. Because from Trent's perspective, I don't know Trent's perspective, but he's 36 years old. They just extended the season to 17 games a couple years ago. He hasn't played more than 15 games in a season since 2013. I don't think it's going to start happening now. He knows he's going to miss a couple of games. Maybe from his perspective, once you knock those out early on, why don't I miss weeks 1 and 2 and perhaps make a little more money if the Niners lose? You'd hate to think of Trent sort of shorting the Niners or betting against them for his own gain, but it's business. What do you think?
He's got them over a barrel.
He does, right?
He's got them over a barrel. They have nowhere to go. The Niners offensive line, according to Warren Sharp, was the 17th rated offensive line in pro football. That's with Trent.
Right.
That's with the best left tackle in the game. So in reality, the Niners last year were 20th in pass block win rate. They were 23rd in run block win rate. And that was with Trent. If you don't have Trent Williams, who's the best left tackle in football really over the last decade, is he still, I don't know, but he's pretty damn close to it. Where would your line rank? Dead last? 25th, 26th, 27th? Somewhere in there. So, they know, and believe me, I'm not telling them anything they don't know. Their replacement level in several spots, and he's the guy that's propping that thing up, and you take him away and it all falls apart. So, I'm shocked. There was a time when they would not even play Jimmy in a practice game without Trent, and now they're talking about throwing Brock Purdy to the Jets in week 1 without Trent. It's hard to believe.
If he doesn't want to play, people said, he just doesn't want to practice. He doesn't want to do training camp. What if he doesn't want to play 17 games anymore? I'm 36. I'm Trent Williams. I'll play 15. Scary thought, because that could result in 2 losses. All right, Let's look at players whose status is in question for week 1 in addition to Trent Williams. I'll go one by one.
Okay.
Christian McCaffrey hasn't practiced in a month with a calf injury. Give me on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you about his status?
I would say 1. Why? Because he's been there working out on the side. I've been watching him closely working out on the side. He looks 100%. To me, he looks 100%. Now, if he isn't, I'd be shocked. I think he's there on the side just because he's Christian McCaffrey. I think that he's close to 100% and that he's going to fire in week 1. So I'm not as concerned about him. I think he'll be there, and I think he'll play and play well.
Yeah, I think I agree. The thing that's concerning about him is it seems like this calf thing is a re-aggravation. It was something that was bothering him at times last year. It didn't keep him out of any games, but it's something that they may have to manage, and you don't know when it could get injured again, if it gets injured again. So, but yeah, I would expect him to play. Next player, Isaac Guerrero, groin injury, missed about a week.
Not going to play. I think Shanahan kind of said it to us last week. He's like, hey, he's got a groin. He could be, we don't know the status, probably a week. The groins linger. He hasn't played a lot of football this summer. He's a big muscled up guy. I would say they're going to play it safe with him, and he'll be inactive week 1. That'd be my guess.
Agree. Jawan Jennings, oblique, hasn't played since since before the preseason finale.
JJ is a money player, and when it's time to play, he shows up. So I have no concern. I would say he goes. Agreed. Now, Grant, though, I did watch him a lot on the side, and he's not necessarily running as much. So I don't, I saw him doing some work and some more stretching, and that I didn't see him necessarily running. I'd like to see him run, since that's what his job is to run routes. But I just got to think that he's such a money guy, and he's a guy that's he's there when the money is on the table, and it counts in week 1. I think he'll be there.
Good eye. Aaron Banks, pinky, been out for a while.
Definitely going to be there. If he's not there, we're going to have a conversation, right? I mean, when a 320-pound offensive lineman is missing week 1 in a Super Bowl window year because of a broken pinky, there needs to be dialogue. So I would say he's going to be there for sure, 100%.
Yetur Gross-Matos knee looked kind of bad in that preseason game.
I say he's not there because they said week to week, and it hasn't been that long. And my guess is if it's week to week, that I don't know. That says to me 2 to 3 weeks, and it hasn't been 2 to 3 weeks.
Now Leonard Floyd was back at practice the other day. I don't even think he's not really worth mentioning.
No, Leonard Floyd's going to go.
He's going to go.
First of all, anybody who knows anything about Leonard Floyd knows that he's going to go. He's the best edge rusher the Niners have had in this era, I believe, opposite Bosa. Obviously Bosa's the best, but this guy I would say is better than D Ford, better than any of the guys they've had. I think he's played in like 108 straight games or something like that. He's played in 108 straight games. So he'll be there.
D Winters ankle hurt it against the Raiders.
Yeah, I didn't see the injury, but I think he's going to go. I think it was a low ankle sprain. From what I had heard, someone said it was a low ankle sprain, not a high ankle sprain, and that it was more, kind of a one that thought that that he could probably tape it up, and after a few days of staying off it, he could go. So I think he goes.
Talanoa Hufanga recently returned to practice.
Not going to go. Not going to go. Not going to
Simple
go.
as that.
And it's not that he couldn't go. If this were Super Bowl Sunday, he would be out there. But it's not. And Huff's had a lot of injuries throughout his college career, throughout his pro career. He's a very special player. You heard John say, "Hey, we're a much better football team when Huff's on the field." So that they know what they got. And I think they're going to slow play him. No chance he plays. I would say he doesn't play the first couple weeks. I would say look for him maybe week 4, something like that. Week 5.
Okay. All right. Well, let's check out our sponsor bet. Let's check out our sponsor Bet US just to check in on the week 1 betting line. I mean, it started off as Niners -6. Last week it was -4.5. Now it's -3.5, and the over/under is down to 43. Last time I checked, it was 44. So it's getting closer. The over/under is getting smaller. I guess. I mean, I don't really know. It looks my amateur interpretation is that the potential absence of Trent Williams is starting to affect this line. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, no question, and also, not that the preseason doesn't matter, right? When preseason doesn't matter. The Jets did run the table in the preseason. They did go undefeated in the preseason. I don't think it really matters. I watched all 3 of those games start to finish last night, and they weren't impressive. I mean, I would say the Jets, I love the 49ers in this game. Even whether Trent goes or not, they lost Bryce Huff to the Eagles in free agency. They replaced him with Hassan Reddick, but they didn't sign Reddick, and they still haven't signed Reddick. And I don't think Reddick's going to be there. So yeah, they got Jermaine Johnson, and they got Quinnen, and they got Will McDonald, and it's not like they're bare. the cupboard's bare. They're still pretty freaking loaded, but I think you can run on this defense. If you look at the Jets numbers from a year ago, the Jets were 25th against the run. So the Niners need to test that early and often on Monday night.
That's very interesting. One thing I would say as a word of caution here, I read this from Tyler Sullivan on CBS.com. I'm looking for the exact article, but I believe he said that Super Bowl losers are 4-19 against the spread in, I guess, the last 23 years. And I do remember when the Niners lost the Super Bowl the last time, week 1 against Arizona at home, they lost 24-20. So the Super Bowl hangover is kind of palpable with this team. Trent Williams in question. Jets have a lot to prove. You could argue that this is sort of their Super Bowl, and for the Niners, they know they're a team that can flip the switch and peak late. They've done it a bunch of times. So I'm a little hesitant. I mean, I'm not picking the Jets yet, but I don't know. I want to see what's up with Trent. But I'm going with Larry's pick in this case. What about Rams-Lions week 1? Lions -3.5 at home.
Man, I mean, the Lions last year started week 1 by knocking off the Chiefs at Arrowhead.
Yeah, they did.
And I think they're going to hit the ground running this summer. Now, I think a lot of people saying it's Lions here. ESPN picked the Lions to beat the Niners in the NFC Championship game. They're the chic pick. I get it. I understand why. They got a great O-line. But I think they'll start fast. But I think they've also been relatively injury-free, and that's a hard thing to do year after year after year. And they've already started to get dinged up a little bit this summer with the running back going down. So I think I like the Lions early, but I think the Lions are going to suffer more injuries this year, and their depth will be tested. I don't think they're as deep as people think.
Interesting. I kind of like the Lions this year. And one of the things I like about them is that they have an easy schedule in the sense that they're a good team indoors and a much worse team on outdoors. And I think all but one of their games are indoors. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. I'm pretty sure I'm right.
They played Minnesota indoors. I mean, they played Chicago for sure they're playing Chicago outside, and they're playing Green Bay outside. So that's 2.
Okay, so
so it's got to be
but I think most of their games.
I think it's indoors. I think it's really low though. I think it's like 2 or 3 games outside for the Lions all year. It's crazy.
Well, look, guys, if you're looking for a new sports book this football season, BetUS is the answer. They got the fastest payouts in the industry, 125% sign-up bonus up to $2,000 on your first 3 deposits, fast and easy deposit and withdrawal process, 24/7 personalized service, 365 days of the year, live wagering on all major games, the best betting variety in the business, 10% back on your net losses twice a year, and your very own personal account manager. Just check out my BetUS link in the description below, or check out the BetUS link in Larry's description as well. All right, I have a series of questions for you. This is a week 1 show. We've talked about the business of football and rosters and battles and backups. Like, no, this is freaking Jets week. Let's go. What is the biggest question for the 49ers defense in this game?
Wow, that's a good one. Biggest question for the 49er defense in this game. I think it's Breece Hall is not just a big back, but he's a sub 4.4 big back. So you have to take the right angles on Breece, because you look at Breece and you think 1 speed, but then when you look at him run and you're like, whoa, wait a second, this guy's got a little bit of an extra gear that big backs don't normally have. Mm-hmm. So I would say taking proper angles on Breece Hall is going to be the number 1 thing in this game. Because if you take a bad angle, he's gone. He's got that kind of speed. He's really, really a difference maker. He's a tremendous player.
That's funny. I was going to go the same exact direction. And it's like, we know the Niners run defense was an issue last year. So clearly, like, stopping the run, can you stop Breece Hall? He's a really good running back, but there's more. Breece Hall was their second leading receiver last year in terms of targets. So it goes Garrett Wilson, who the Niners should be able to do a pretty good job against. I mean, they have good DBs, and then it's the check down, Breece Hall. And usually the Niners aren't going to be beat by a check down because they have Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. But Dre Greenlaw's not there. And in this defense where they play all this zone coverage, there's a lot of space between the linebackers. And if those linebackers aren't really fast and on it, you can give up a lot of yards on checkdowns. Like a 3-yard pass can become a 9-yard gain. And if that's what's going to happen in this game, the Niners will lose. If they can limit those checkdowns to 3-4 yards, they absolutely could win. And this was a thing we saw like back with the Rams when Todd Gurley was the running back over there. He was the whole offense. And early on, the Niners just couldn't stop a freaking check down to Todd Gurley because linebackers were like Navarro Bowman and other guys. Now, those plays don't really phase the Niners, but I'm curious to see what it looks like without Dre Greenlaw.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the 49ers in the last couple of years have just been a cross-your-fingers situation on defense against screen passes. There's way, way, way too much space on that second level for the screen passes. They don't defend them well. They don't defend them consistently. If I were a team that were going against the 49ers, I'd throw 4 or 5 of them every game and see if you could bust a big play. So
crack tosses and screens, baby, all day.
Yeah, I mean, especially you got Rodgers, right? So Rodgers, the big question is Aaron Rodgers has played in 4 plays in 2 years. Yep. He's 40 years old. He's operating behind an offensive line that has a new right tackle, a new left tackle, and a new left guard. So they got 3/5 of their offensive line new. They flew across the country. You know what I mean? At the start the year, 3/5.
They couldn't get him through the first drive last year.
Exactly. I think the Niners have a good rush with Bosa and Floyd coming after him. So how do you negate that? You negate that with misdirection and screen passes and getting the ball out early to Malachi Corley. So I think to me, Corley's an interesting guy because he's a rookie. We don't know how much they'll utilize him. He's great underneath. And Breece Hall on screen passes. Also, they've got, it's not a one-back deal here anymore. Braylon Allen went for 9 yards a carry. He's a big back from Wisconsin, and Izzy Abanaconda is like 4.3 guy, and Isaiah Davis is a burner. So I mean, and he can catch the ball out of the backfield. So to me, it's Breece Hall and all of the backfield short stuff around the line of scrimmage. Can the Niners hug up and close down that space and eliminate the big plays?
Now, fortunately for the 49ers, the Jets offensive coordinator is Nathaniel Hackett, who just might be the worst offensive coordinator in the league. I mean, he's almost a face guy for Aaron Rodgers. So we'll see what Aaron Rodgers cooks up for that opening drive. It didn't go so well the first time or the last time. Okay, what is the biggest question for the 49ers offense in week 1 other than will Trent Williams be there?
Well, you know, this Jets defense was 3rd in total defense last year, 2nd in pass D. Sauce is a Hall of Famer. He's really young, but he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, he's a great player. CJ Mosley's still a very good inside linebacker, very consistent. And Cohn Williams is a monster, and Jermaine Johnson is almost an equal monster. And McDonald looked great in the preseason. Tack McKinley, who's a Bay Area kid, just had 2.5 sacks in the last game. And they also have the Michigan kid, McGregor, who they play in a rotation, and he's got a heavy motor going. So I think the Niners got to run the ball. Jets were 25th against the run. I don't think they stopped the run. And they added Javon Kinlaw and up front because they're trying to plug the middle. But we all know Javon gets wired to blocks and doesn't come off blocks and is kind of he looks the part, but he doesn't actually play the position well. So I think you run it. I think you run it on them. I think you figure out a way to get Mosley blocked and you run it on them. And then also, if I'm Shanahan, I am absolutely crushing Chuck Clark. He's coming off an ACL. He's their strong safety. He doesn't cover well. If you can get Clark and make him play coverage, I think you're going to beat him all night.
Some of the questions is like, will Ayuk be able to play? He hasn't practiced much. Like, is he ready? Can he play? Is McCaffrey ready? Can he play? Obviously, is Trent Williams ready? Can he play? But then, like, from a schematic standpoint, this is Robert Saleh against the 49ers, the first time since he's left. He knows their offense as well as anybody. And the really good defensive coordinators last year had success in specific ways against the 49ers. They got a lot of pressure with these simulated pressures. Like, the Niners had a tough time picking up blitzes. I mean, Chris Forrester talked about it a couple of weeks ago about how Jake Brendel had a lot of missed assignments last year. And it all culminated with, I think, 9 unblocked rushers in the Super Bowl. I'm sure Robert Saleh understands the Niners' weaknesses in that aspect and has a whole plan to sort of try to exploit it. So have the Niners learned? Can they pick up a simulated pressure, or is Brock Purdy going to be under siege all game like he was in the Super Bowl?
Not only do I think that's a great question on one side, I think that might be the question on both sides, to be honest, because last year there was a serious disconnect, if you believe the New York papers, between Hackett and their O-line coach Keith Carter over the protections. And so I think the Niners, with 3 new offensive linemen, with their communication issues, with Rodgers being 40, I think the Niners are going to play all kinds of games up front and make them communicate. And I think the Jets also have the ability to do the exact same thing. I mean, if the Jets are going to win this game, they have to beat the D-line, has to beat the Niner O-line, and Brock Purdy has to feel that pressure all night long. They know it, and I just think that Brock processes really, really well. And I think that's what he does best, to be honest. And I think that's gonna. Is he up for the challenge? That's the question, because they're gonna throw an assortment of exotic blitzes at him and stunts and games up front.
You almost said the wrong word.
That's
I've
right.
never heard that phrase before, but I kind of like it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He did. Okay. What I wanted to say was, I think you bring up a really good point. I think both teams' offensive approach in this game is going to be quick passes. Get the ball out of the quarterback's hand as fast as possible, because really the offensive line is the weakness for both teams. Pass protection in general is the weakness for both teams. So which coordinator can think of more creative ways to get to throw screens and passes behind the line of scrimmage, or real quick ones? And I think that's always going to be Kyle. I mean, if it's anyone versus Nathaniel Hackett, it's anyone. Sorry, Nathaniel.
Well, and it's also going to be about, the Niners have a new starter at right guard. They got a new starter at left tackle. And they have McKivitz on the right side, who's struggled in the past. The Jets are going to do the same thing the Niners are going to do. They're going to make the Niner offensive line communicate, and they're going to find out how efficiently they do it.
It just seems to me like theoretically on paper, the Jets can do to the Niners offense what the Chiefs did to the Niners offense, which is play aggressive press man coverage and then bring pressure. They can do that. They have the personnel to do that. They have the DBs to do that. Sauce Gardner's really good. So even if Brandon Ayuk does play, it's not like there's necessarily going to be quick, easy, open options for Brock Purdy to dump the ball to. It's going to be interesting.
It's going to be really interesting. The other one is, they've got some good young players on this defense that they've added. I mean, Will McDonald had a great preseason. I mean, he looks amazing. He's flying off the edge. And then they added this kid out of the Canadian League, Quantez Stiggers, who played for the Toronto Argos and didn't go to college. And Stiggers looked phenomenal in the preseason. And they have DJ Reed, and they still, of course, have Tony Adams, and they brought in Chuck Clark from the Ravens. And they obviously they've got Sauce. So and he's a big time guy. So I mean it's going to be the defense is going to be, can the 49ers beat this defense? Can the Niner receivers free themselves up down the field? And can the Niner offensive line stand up to this front? Because they're going to be coming. Clemens, McDonald, Solly, Thomas, Leonard Taylor. They got a bunch of guys. They're going to be coming in waves.
One more question for the Niners offense. It's Kyle versus Saleh. These guys know each other very well, and it's like a little bit of probably a personal competition here. Is Kyle going to overthink this one, or is this going to be Kyle at his best? Is this Kyle exploiting a Robert Saleh that he knows better than anyone, or is this Kyle being like, well, Robert knows I'm going to do this, so I can't do this because I have to do this because he thinks I'm going to do this? I mean, I've seen Kyle get in his head like that sometimes. With a whole offseason to prepare, are we going to be looking at this offense being like, what the hell is that? Who are you trying to fool? That's one more question for Kyle. Which Kyle, good Kyle or bad Kyle?
Kyle's hanging with Rick Ross, man.
Rick Ross. I gotta feel like that was the second or third option. Come on, you got to get Lil Wayne there, or Lil Boosie, or someone with a Lil in front of it.
You don't like Rick Ross? I mean, that should be Ratty's
I like Rick
favorite.
Ross when I was 19.
Not anymore.
Can't remember the last time he made a song that was or a song. Hey Rick, what are you doing? You want to come to my party? Absolutely nothing. Yes, I want to be there.
Kyle had the cane. He had the white. He had the suit.
Yeah.
The vest. He was.
He looked like Great Gatsby. I guess he did. That was the theme.
I mean, supposedly Kyle's got a $12 million house.
I would imagine. He had an all white suit on too, and I want to make fun of it, but I wore an all white suit to my senior prom. All white, Avery, yeah. Because I was like, how can I be the most obnoxious version of myself tonight?
Red tie and cummerbund. What'd you go with?
No. I got it at Men's Warehouse though. Shout out to George Zimmerman.
I played golf with him a few years ago.
Such a local celebrity, man.
I guarantee it.
Great. He was there when I bought it. He was like, he's like 5'5". He's a little dude.
He's smoked.
But he's got a presence.
He's got that voice of like somebody who smoked like 17 packs a day.
I guarantee it. Okay. Biggest advantage for the 49ers defense in week 1.
Biggest advantage for the 49er defense is that Aaron Rodgers has not played, and they chose his health over his rhythm, and you'll pay for that in week 1. So they chose to say, you know what? We're not going to play Rodgers didn't play at all last year. Played 4 snaps on that MetLife turf, and that was it. The Achilles popped, and his season was over. He's played 4 plays in 2 years. So now he's flying cross-country West Coast to take on the Niners after no preseason action. I think the Jets are giving away in some ways the first quarter and a half to the 49ers in this game. So I love the spot for the 49ers. I really do. I think Rodgers could have a good year, but I'd be shocked if he was good on Monday night in week 1.
Yeah, that's a good call. And there's also the fact that the Niners are sort of in Rodgers' head. They always do well against Rodgers. Even when he was winning MVPs 2-3 years ago, he didn't do well against the 49ers. It seems like he's kind of scared to throw over the middle against Fred Warner. It seems like he's kind of intimidated by Nick Bosa in the Niners pass rush. It seems like if you hit him a couple of times, he starts kind of just avoiding contact. All-time great player, 4-time MVP, but I don't think the Niners are scared of him at all.
I mean, I'm sitting in front of a microphone, okay? And I've done talk shows through my life, and now I'm talking about a football player who's actually taking hits, and I'm going to call him soft. I can't call him soft, but I will say this. In the last few years, Aaron Rodgers will not hang in the pocket. He's
40.
He will get rid of the ball. He will not take hits. He will get rid of the football. So if you can speed him up, you can force him to. He'd rather throw it away, throw it into the turf, and go to the next set of downs than take a hit and let his guys free up down the field. So I think he's no longer has the same commitment that he used to have.
It's a good call. I think there's that, and then there's also the fact that the Jets, again, have the worst offensive coordinator in the league. So God knows what their offensive game plan is going to be, if it's going to be sophisticated or smart. I mean, I think the Jets are going to be dialed in on defense because it's Robert Saleh, but what are Aaron Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett going to cook up? Like, we saw those two take on the Niners in the playoffs, right? They did nothing. They did nothing.
And the report this summer is that the Jets, are kind of in a state of disarray, and that they're not getting along all that great, and that Rodgers is the chemistry is not great, and I mean they're all in. They're all in on this year, and yet they didn't play their quarterback, their 40-year-old quarterback who didn't play last year at all in the preseason, and yet they want to start fast. I would expect the Jets will probably come out running the ball. Because you do have Breece Hall, and you do have an improved offensive line, and they don't want Rodgers hasn't played in a while, and he is 40, and they have three new players on the offensive line, and you do have Floyd, and they do have Bosa. You know what I'm saying? I think this is going to be a run heavy game plan. I think maybe for both teams. I love the under, to be honest. If you're wagering in this thing Monday night, I love the under because I think the Jets got to run the ball heavy in this game. And I think the Niners, looking at that 25th ranked run D and how good they are against the pass, they'd be smart to run it a lot.
Yeah, this could be a big Jordan Mason game. I mean, that'd
be nice. I'd love to see him.
Yeah, I mean, he's had such a good offseason. He's fresh. This is a long season, 17 games. Christian McCaffrey's coming off an injury. Like, great time to ease him back in and lean on Mason if it's working.
I mean, based on what we've seen this summer, Grant, Jordan Mason is going to be one of the stories of the 49ers this year. I mean, he looks amazing. Amazing. I mean, he's always looked good, but he bought himself that $3,000 jugs machine, and his catch radius has tripled. I mean, he used to only catch it right there. If it was high, low, didn't catch it. Now I've seen him catch balls up. I've seen him catch balls off the grass. He's just got a big catch radius. He's running really great. He looks like a guy that could take over and could. The Niners look like they could win 5 or 6 games, without McCaffrey this year, as long as they have Mason.
I have one more advantage the Niners defense has over the Jets, and this is big. The 49ers defense is going to unveil some erratic blitzes that we have not seen the Niners run yet. This is going to be totally new and different and a little risque. These are going to be some erotic blitzes, and I think
not erotic. I mean, exotic.
Suitable for all ages. It's going to be really, really wild. So, watch out for that.
You don't want those erotic blitzes. You want
really
those exotics.
Okay, what is the biggest advantage for the 49ers offense in week 1?
I would say the way Brock Purdy's playing right now. He's
okay.
I know Brock Purdy at times in the preseason took chances that he doesn't normally take, but it seems like in the move the ball drills and practice, he seems like a guy who looks very, very comfortable. Looks very, very comfortable to me. So I think Brock's gonna, going into year 3, having had a full off season, I think he looks good. He should play his best football of his career starting right now. Right now. He's had his cup of coffee. He's had the injury. He's had the rehab. He knows the offense. He knows the weapons. He should be able to take it. If there's another level to get to, he should be able to get to that level this year.
It's a good answer. I feel like Kyle's knowledge of Saleh is an advantage. Like, Kyle hired Saleh. Kyle sort of developed Saleh. Kyle knows Saleh's defense better than pretty much anyone. And I expect week 1, with all that time to prepare, Kyle and his dad and the whole Niners brain trust should have one hell of a freaking opening script at the bare minimum for this game.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think the 49ers are going to lose this game. I've heard a bunch of people make arguments the 49ers are going to lose this game. I don't know. I mean, it just seems like I like the way the 49ers come out of the chute typically. I don't know. I'm not sure why I like them here. Just simply because, I look at the Jets and I go, well, I watched the Jets all preseason. I'm like, their offensive line's improved, but they don't look all that great. Their quarterbacks didn't have tons of time. They didn't make tons of pass plays. I watched all 3 preseason games. I barely saw any of their number 1 weapons do anything. I mean, like nothing at all. So I just think behind a offensive line with 2 older tackles, I think Floyd and Bosa are going to have a field day against Tyron and Morgan Moses.
Well, it's going to be interesting because, Garrett Wilson is pretty good. Like, he's had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and he's never played with Aaron Rodgers yet. So if Rodgers can actually, stay upright and throw a football still, Wilson's going to be a factor. Now, the Niners can match up, but he can make some plays.
He's one of the best route runners in pro football. He's a great route runner. So, and you're right. He did that last year. He had a great year last year and without Rodgers. Mm. Look at last year. They lost Rodgers. They went to Zach Wilson. This year they've got Tyrod Taylor. They chased Zach Wilson out of there. So, that's what
people don't realize about the Jets. They were 7-10 last year somehow, some way with Zach Wilson and whoever the hell they were playing at quarterback.
Right, because their defense was really, really good. But then, Bryce Huff had 10 sacks, and they let him go to Philly, and then they didn't replace him. And so now it's like, well, who's gonna play opposite Jermaine Johnson? Is it going to be Michael Clemens? See, I think the Niner offensive tackles struggle against speed, so Reddick bothers them. I don't think Michael Clemens, who's a big body. I mean, I would say Clemens probably goes close to 280. I don't think he's gonna. That's not the kind of guy. I asked McKivitz about this last year. I said, hey, because it was the Jacksonville game. I'm like, do you like the speed guys or do you like going up against the bigger guys like Trayvon Walker? And he's like, I'll take the big-bodied guy every time. They're just easier to block. So I think Clemens is an easier block than Reddick.
Good call. Barry, a baller's been a member for 36 months. That's 3 years, man. Thank you very much, Barry, a baller. You are a baller, and I know you stream with Larry. Milton Jr., 18, $2. Thank you. Matthew Short, $5. Do you worry about the tackling and D line? I do. That was the first thing we talked about. Can you stop a check down? Can you tackle Breece Hall? He's a big play guy.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the 49ers, sat a lot of their guys this summer as well. They didn't play a lot of their guys. I just would wonder, I'm a little concerned about Devondre Campbell. Can Devondre Campbell break down in space? If he was replacing a nobody, it'd be one thing. He's replacing a guy in Dre Greenlaw who is awesome, who's literally underrated, one of the most underrated players in pro football. And you're asking Devondre Campbell, who kind of washed out of Green Bay, to step in for a guy that I consider almost an all-pro in Greenlaw. I think that's a tall task.
It's a good question. It's a good call.
So
when we say, like, can the Niners take good angles to Breece Hall, we're talking Devondre Campbell and whoever the third linebacker is, and like George Odom if he plays.
Right. That's the other. That's the other one too. George Odom had a great summer. He really did. He's going to be the starting safety opposite Jair Brown.
Yeah.
And based on what I saw this summer, I feel pretty good about it. But based on what I know about George's career, I'm a little nervous about it because he's really been a special teamer throughout most of his career. He played the safety spot this summer like he's played from scrimmage for years. He took good angles. I didn't see him take a lot of bad angles. I didn't see him miss a lot of tackles or fall off a lot of tackles. To me, it's like in some ways, Odom has been a revelation how well he's played from scrimmage.
Agree. Hold on. I want to see Milton Jr. 18 says, Grant, I forgot to add my question about college O-line prospects we should be following. Oh, ask Larry.
Whoa.
Man, you're getting ahead of yourself there, but I appreciate it.
That's the guy who for LSU, I forget his name last night. He's the LSU left tackle is a tremendous player.
Is UCLA going to be good this year in the Big Ten?
UCLA lost their defensive coordinator, who was awesome, and he went to SC. So we'll see.
With SC?
Yeah,
traitor. Why would he do that? He was at the better school. What do they offer you? Oh, money. Yeah. Oh, right, of course, money.
Greenbacks.
It's always good.
Something about money.
Was there anything else you want to talk about in general before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that the one thing that's concerning to me, it's kind of an overarching concern that didn't show itself necessarily this summer, but I think it's a concern, is that in the last couple of years, the quality and the talent and the depth of the 49er D line has kind of evaporated. I mean, they used to have Charles Menahue. And Charles Menahue was on this line, and Ridgeway was on this line. Ebukam was on this line. Key was on this line. They've had some guys, even last year with Farrell and Gregory and Chase Young. They weren't spectacular by any stretch, but they had guys. They don't have that kind of depth now. I mean, their front four is Floyd and Bosa, Collins and Hargrave. We need to see a bounce back year out of Hargrave. To me, you can't have a Gravedigger nickname if you don't play well. He didn't play well. So, and then you've got Yatir Gross-Matos with a knee who might not be ready to go. You got Jordan Elliott, who I kind of like, but he's I don't know if he's spectacular. Givens took some plays off in the NFC Championship game with Chase Young. Beal is super raw. And I just think that there's not an Menahue there. There's not a Key there. There's not a Ridgeway there. There's not proof. It's not like they used to have two full lines of almost like starting caliber D linemen. They don't have that defensive line quality or depth that they used to have. That to me is a concern. I don't think people have talked about it. And then everybody ripped Manti Te'o because of the whole catfish thing when he went on whatever he was on and said that the 49ers look emotionally exhausted. But you know what? Catfish or no catfish, whatever on his deal. But you know what? He might be right. And everybody kind of crushed him and didn't address on merit his statement, but I think the Niners do. I mean, Shanahan looks gassed. Lynch looks exasperated. Is it the Ayuk Trent stuff? Maybe. Is it the getting so close and falling short? Maybe. Is it the short off season? I don't know. But I mean, that to me, I think when Manti Te'o said it, I was like,
yeah,
who's Manti Te'o? And then the next thing I said is, you know what? He might be right.
I mean, it's year 8, and we have mentioned to each other, like, man, they seem a little burnt out. I'm trying to look year 8 for Pete Carroll. Where was he with the Seahawks at that point? Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It was 2017. Like they were on the way down at that point. At a certain point, you have the same group and they sort of get a little tired of each other and resentful of each other if they haven't achieved exactly what they think they should have. And I think the Niners are a little bit like that Seahawks dynasty without the ring, at least right now.
I will say this. When you talk to a few of the guys like Lenore and a few others, there does seem to be kind of a determination, a little bit more determination, a little bit more fire. They're keenly aware that, 54, Super Bowl 54, they were, ahead of schedule. And, a couple of those years they were on schedule, and now they're probably behind schedule. So I get a sense that there is a determination. We got to make it happen. I don't want to call it desperation. That sounds a little strong, but you know what I'm saying? Like a real strong determination. Like, we haven't gotten it done. We need to get it done. This group's too talented, too much talent here, offensively, defensively, to not get it done at least once. And they haven't. So I get the feeling there's a determination from them that maybe is greater. Like in the past, I get the feeling that it was more like, hey, we got a lot of talent in this room. Let's see how it goes. Now it's like, hey, man, we got to get it done this year.
Who does it? Week 1. How am I going to phrase this? Does this game mean more to the Jets or to the 49ers week 1?
Well, I think the Jets duo of Saleh and Douglas are on the hot seat. Mm-hmm. Come on, these guys are fired. These guys are done. Mm-hmm. Shanahan and Lynch, Shanahan's got a $12 million house. He's got a 6-year extension. Lynch, these guys can stay as long as they want. I mean, they're basically made men. They came on the heels of Tom Sula and Chip Kelly and have delivered multiple trips to the NFC Championship game and multiple trips to the Super Bowl. They haven't gotten it done, and they're going to have to get it done because that's how this franchise measures itself. But come on, all the pressure's on the Jets. All the pressure's on the Jets. I know the Niners have a tough schedule late in the year, but Robert Saleh's not going to make it to November if they get off to a cold start. So it's on Douglas and Saleh.
Yeah, this is a big game for the Jets. If they win, if they lose, you just laid out what's at stake. If they win, they're instantly looked at as a legit contender, a team that could win the Super Bowl this year with Aaron Rodgers. If the Niners win or lose, it's hard to say if it'll move the needle that much. It'll be alarming if they lose, but if Trent Williams doesn't play, they'll have an excuse. This is a team that started off 2-4 a couple of years ago, 3-4 a couple of years ago. They can get hot and go. So I don't think this game means much at all to the 49ers unless someone gets hurt. Whereas the Jets, this is everything.
If the Jets get off to, the Jets play, I think, on the road in week 2. I don't have their schedule in front of me, but I think they play on the road in week 2. That they seriously could get into, I think they get New England maybe at home in week 3 on a Thursday night. If they go into that New England game and they're 0-2 and they lose to New England on Thursday night national TV, Saleh could be fired right there.
Titans could on the road week 2.
What's that?
Titans on the road week 2.
Titan and come on, Titans. In Nashville this time of the year with all the stickiness and humidity, that's a tough place. So and they're good on the line of scrimmage. So and they just invested in their line of scrimmage. So yeah, if Saleh could potentially not make it to week 4 if they lose to if they go 0-3, I don't think he makes it to week 4.
On the other hand, if they win week 1, all of a sudden Robert Saleh's in the conversation for coach of the year. So either way, it's a big swing. Yeah. A lot at stake. Yeah. Well, a whole lot at stake for him.
And doesn't that kind of illustrates the answer to the last question? That, come on, man, it's New York and the pressure, especially now, because the Jets last year were in a win now mode, but now they went for the win now mode, and their 40-year-old quarterback blew out his Achilles, so now they're in super win now mode. So yeah, the pressure's on them.
Look, I don't know what Kyle's got cooked up, but I would guess there's going to be a whole lot of Debo in this game plan. Debo catching the ball, Debo running the ball, Debo throwing the ball. We saw those trick plays in camp. Debo throwing deep to Brock, Debo throwing deep to Jawan. Like, I would think that Kyle's going to do a whole lot of Debo stuff because that's the guy he's had all offseason.
It's interesting because, and not only has he had him all off season, he's had an incredible camp. He's in great shape. I'd want to limit Ayuk in this game. I may want to limit JJ in this game. There will be no Pearsall in this game. And then the other guys are Ronnie Bell, Chris Conley, who's a special teamer, and Cowing, who's literally in his first NFL game. So, yeah, I think that's a great call. In fact, you know what? If you're one of those daily fantasy guys, Debo. Monday
Elite
night.
Archer 23 says, yes, year 3 of me saying Kyle can't get it done. Larry still has hope in little baby Shanahan. Little baby Shanahan? That's just mean. I would never say anything like that.
Oh, let's not forget this, because a lot of people do forget this. Kyle Shanahan, in his last couple of years, last 3 years, I think it's like 35, and he's 35-16 in the last 3 years. 8-4 career in the playoffs. 35-16 the last 3 years with 3 trips to the NFC Championship game. It's pretty good. I realized he was hovering around 500 there for a while overall, and his overall record is not great because they started slow in the early years. But 35-16 in the last 3 years, that's pretty gaudy.
Yeah, he's a very good coach. Let's see if he can finish the job.
A lot of talent, too.
Yeah, a lot of talent. Very good coach. Let's see if he can finish the job. He's got the 8th crack at it this year. Larry, this has been one of our best, if I do say so myself. Thank you very much.
Grant, check me out tonight at 6 o'clock on KMBR 680. I'm starting a new show Monday through Friday, Niners Nightly on the radio. Not giving up the YouTube channel. The Krug Show is alive and well and will continue to be alive and well. Thank you to KMBR partnering with us, and we're getting along. We're sharing content, and I'll have a brand new show tonight at 6 to 7. Niners Nightly. Cam Inman's going to stop by. We're going to talk about Cam's killer book, by the way, the franchise with Cam. He had the Gore and Kittle did the forward. Cam's a good guy, and I don't know if you've read any of this, but good stuff.
Yeah, definitely check that out.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe to Larry's channel and mine, and we will see you tomorrow at Levi Stadium. We will see if Trent Williams or Christian McCaffrey or Brandon Ayuk, we'll see who's practicing